Welcome to the Mid-Market Edge podcast, where we uncover operational insights for private equity-backed portfolio companies. I'm your host, Kevin Bonfield, and over the last 30 years, I've had the privilege of working with fast-growing entrepreneurial teams, helping them scale, tackle challenges, and seize new opportunities. On this show, we'll talk to industry experts and seasoned leaders who will share practical strategies to drive growth, boost efficiency, and create value in the mid-market. Get ready for an insightful, engaging conversation that dives deep into the real-world issues facing your business. Welcome to the Mid-Market Edge. Today, I am talking with Eric Singer, the CEO of Complete Legal. Eric, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. So I met you at an entrepreneurs organization event in Kansas City late last year, and we started talking a little bit about the combination of companies that came together into Complete Legal, and I thought it would be fantastic to have this conversation. So I'm excited to sit down and talk.
No, me too.
Fantastic. So maybe you can start off a little bit of your background and how you got to be the CEO of Complete Legal.
Sure. I started in 1996. I interned at a company called Chicago Legal Copies. Back then, it was only paper. There was not much technology, so just you're making copies and you're working with law firms. So I interned there and worked there for a couple of years, and then I felt like I wanted to kind of do my own thing, but I wanted to do it the right way, and I wanted to move out of town and not mess around with non-compete. So I moved to California. So I got out of the non-compete zone. And spent some time in California for a couple of years in Silicon Valley and downtown San Francisco. But it gave me the opportunity to sales is a big piece of it, but there's a lot of other pieces when you're owning a business. So it gave me the ability to become a general manager of that office. So I got to learn about P&Ls and operations because, like I said, sales is a vital piece, but is only a piece. So I spent a couple of years in California, moved back to Chicago to start a company called Landmark. And I ran that with a partner for probably about 15 or 16 years. Then he was looking to make a move and do something else. So brought in another company that bought his shares. And then technology was becoming, very prevalent. Instead of copying, now you're starting to scan. Now you're starting to do e-discovery, hosting forensics, a litany of other revenue lines of services. And then that company then morphed into another company. And then that was probably over about a 4 or 5 year period of time. And then what was happening was a lot of the paper piece in our industry was becoming kind of, people were getting out of it. It was clunky. The margins were low. So the current company I was at, I let them know, I said, listen, if you're looking for to kind of unload the paper piece, the paper reprographics, let me know. They were willing to do that. So then I started a company called L2. And the purpose of starting that was to really give all my folks a home and also build it again, build it up again like I had before. Then we had, COVID happened. So that was kind of a rough time to have a business, got through that. And I had met my partners now at a Legal Week, which is a big convention in New York, and we stayed in touch, and then we just started talking, and it just started making sense to kind of go down that road. If what it would look like if we kind of put this together, if we put these, we had several cities, several offices. And culture is so important. You can have great top line revenue, great bottom line revenue, but if it's not a culture fit, it's not a good fit culturally, it doesn't make sense. But this made a lot of sense. And the more times I would spend with my partners, I couldn't get it out of my head that this I just felt in my bones that this would be the right move. So it's been super exciting.
That sounds like a fascinating journey of in and out of this of being an entrepreneur and working with companies. I mean that sounds like a fascinating journey, Eric. So just for context, maybe you can set the frame of the combined company when you brought L2 and Complete Legal together. What's the value proposition? What does Complete Legal do? So our listeners know.
Sure. Complete Legal is an end-to-end litigation support company that works with law firms, corporate legal, and government agencies. So anything from paper discovery, from forensics, just all the way down the EDRM model. So really, any company, any law firm would have a need for our company. Some people do these in-house,
Yep.
but a lot of others rely on us. So we didn't abandon really any service. Some companies just focus on certain services, and we really kind of we cast a wide net so we can really kind of be that one-stop shop for our clients.
Fantastic. So you started to have the conversation with your now partners shortly after COVID. What was it about working together that intrigued you? What was the thesis for putting the companies together?
There's a lot of in order to scale in our industry, you need to kind of have a little bit more size. And we were separately we were small companies, and we were doing okay. And I think we'd probably continue to do okay now if we didn't merge. But it just giving the more of that kind of power and being able to kind of go after a larger group, different kind of
Mhm.
clients. Having a
Mhm.
larger bench, having just a bigger reach. And I think we both separately kind of looking to have a partner at some point, and if it made sense. And then we just kind of, got together and started talking. And then, we start looking and making a decision for a certain reason. And then oftentimes, if it's a good decision, or a good partnership, and many other great things happen from that decision or from that
Yeah,
move. And we just started
right.
kind of seeing that as we were talking and going through the exercise, that there were so many other, cool things that made sense, coming together and putting our, forces together.
And you talked earlier on about the culture. Did you start to see that? I mean, was that something that you were specifically testing for during the due diligence phase, or was that something that was just obvious straight away?
It was so important to both sides. Our combined, most of our employees have been with us for 20 plus years in our separate
Wow.
companies, and companies they were with me prior to. So it shows something about when you have people, you have really great retention rate, and people want to work with you. You can create an atmosphere where people are jumping out of bed to come work for you, not hitting the snooze button, and
Right, right.
creating. And I feel like I created that, and they had too. So kind of
Yeah.
finding like-minded people that have very similar values and have
Mhm.
the same, looking at it from a very similar lens. It was
Mhm.
really comforting, and I felt like I
Yeah.
was just, in a great spot to expand with some very like-minded, really good people. And I think we both saw it, and it just started making more and more sense as the meetings continued, and we started
Yeah.
talking about this and that, and it just kind of got the feeling that any issue, any problem, we wouldn't have a hard time figuring out. And that's kind of where we really got to, that we're just like things are gonna come up. There's gonna be forks in the road and stuff like that. But I don't know, we just kind of looked at each other like we can make decisions, we can figure this stuff out together. And that's really how it's been since.
I love that. I love that idea that as you were talking, you were kind of. I'm going to use the word testing. That may not be the right word, but you were testing each other just to see what are those values and how do we address problems together. Maybe you can kind of make this real for me. Can you give me an example of one of those values where you said, "Oh yes, this is our value and this is your value, and they're webbed together."
Sure. I mean, I think it definitely, people first, family first, really
Hmm.
having, just making an atmosphere, creating an atmosphere where people, like I said, just really enjoy working, and they're working hard, and low retention rate. When you have low retention rate, everybody sees the benefit, especially the clients, because the clients see that
Right.
consistent work day in and day out. And when I was
Right.
talking to their people, I was saying, this is kind of like my company, just like everyone's been here
Right.
for a very long time. Everyone's really happy. Everyone acts like an owner because they feel like they have, just because they've been there for so long and they really
Right.
care. So I know people always talk about the people, but it really is, it's the people, how you manage the people, and how you kind of create that atmosphere. And it just
Yeah.
was so similar. I felt like whenever we would talk, we were kind of pulling on the same rope in the same direction together. And it just, it more and more just kind of came up. So it definitely started, with the people having those core folks, having that excitement, having people that really enjoyed working, enjoyed, being together as a team. And then I was finding out how more and more people kind of wanted to come and join our teams when we came
Mhm.
together, because other people who had worked with us in past lives wanted to
Oh,
kind of
really?
get that band kind of back together. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and I do think that when you go through and you've done the deal, that idea that you've got people who are going to stick with you, that's not just great for building the culture, right? It's also great from a customer retention perspective because they know that Sally, they've worked with Sally for a long while, and if there's a problem, Sally's going to solve it for them, and Sally's still there.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So you have these conversations. It looks like it's going to work really well, and then you've closed the deal. So how did you start to think about how you're bringing the companies together? Because this is, you've got entrepreneurs who have run their own business, and now there's some constraints to presumably to how you operate, right? Because you've got a partnership. So how did you work through that process?
No, absolutely. It's a great question. I mean, you're almost taking, we had basically four offices and you're kind of just smashing them together. And then while
Right.
that was happening, we had a small acquisition that we were doing at the same time. So it's like
Yep.
five companies and each company has their best practice. Each company has their way of doing things.
Yep.
And you're trying to make these deals be like 2 + 2 = 6, right? At the same time, you want to, make sure you don't have too many of the same positions. You're really so it's we just really started going through each position, each department, and talking about it,
Hmm.
and really and just putting it on the table, whiteboarding. What how do you do things in this situation? How do you do things with this? And it was a very a long process. It was heavy lifting. It was
Yeah.
muddy. It was dirty. It took over a year. Really just to kind of figure out what's the best. And you still keep refining things.
Mhm.
You still. But yeah, we just laid it on the table. We had, tons and tons of hours of just going through and finding what makes the most sense. And there was things that made sense with Complete and made sense with L2 and just with, so it was a really big, information share,
Yeah.
and a lot of things were already being run similar, but a lot weren't. So you think about kind of throwing it all in like a blender, and just taking all those great ideas and those best practices and then coming up with a new set. So it was a long, arduous process, but definitely paid off.
It sounds like a thoughtful one as well, Eric, where, going department by department. I mean, this is obviously a different when you're combining two entities and you've got partners coming together versus an add-on acquisition where you know exactly the way that things operate already, right? It's a different integration path because you're looking at what's the best practice. And so that sounds like a thoughtful approach to go department by department and say, how do you do things? What works best? Were there any challenges in having the conversation that way, where there were strong beliefs on both sides that you did it the best way?
Yeah, I mean, it went pretty smoothly. I mean, there were certain times. I think some of the challenges were when you had for some of the people, right? So you had
Hmm.
duplicative people kind of doing the
Yeah,
same thing to different offices, trying to find out who's the best person for that job. Would that person be better in doing this? So that was kind of where it was. And some of them we couldn't do it right away. We had to wait,
yeah,
kind of wait and see these are the people we're targeting for this position, and then kind of see how it all. So that was I think that was something we had to kind of, wait and see. But for the most part, yeah, you get, like I said, the culture, it's hard when you have a lot of people that, are stubborn and they all want it their way. And that was
right.
definitely not the case here. So that helped because to your point, it's hard because people just want to do it the way they've been doing it. And they think that's the
Hmm.
best. And you have to be open-minded because oftentimes you might think it's the best because it's the way you're comfortable with and you've done it, but that doesn't
Right.
mean it's the best. And that's why I love, having great partners because they can open you up to different ideas and yeah, let's
Right.
try it out. And then you try it and you're like, wow, they're right. This is a better way to do it.
And to be able to have that conversation must have taken a lot of trust on both sides to be able to just lay bare this is the way that we do things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so how did you build that trust? What was the starting point for being able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know each other for a long time, so it wasn't like we had the 10 or 15 years behind us,
Right.
we clicked quickly, and there was just that you just get that feeling, that feeling that this is these are a good group of guys. They know what they're doing, and it was really just kind of through a lot of time. We spent a lot of time before we before we actually, did the deal. And I remember going back, it was, we're talking for a while, and then I remember I said, "Hey, the Royals are playing the Cubs, and this day and
Yeah.
all, I guess, like, let's get you guys out to Chicago. Let's figure this out. And if we don't do it, it's okay. We'll still be buddies." But just that trust was just kind of building over time. And I'd go out to Kansas City, several times, and
Hmm.
just each time we spent together, we spent time with our families. Got really everyone together, and so everybody could kind of meet each other, and it just started getting the trust, the comfortability, just really seeing eye to eye. And even when we don't see eye to eye on some things, it's very quickly we talk about it, and we move on, we pivot. So it's been a really, really fun, healthy experience.
That's great. I mean, I don't hear many stories about how the Cubs were the catalyst to making an acquisition
Right,
happen. Because
exactly. The Cubs bring them
uh,
together. Right, exactly.
yeah, that's good. So you've got two entities coming together at the same time in L2 and Complete Legal, but then you also mentioned that you had an additional acquisition that was happening at the same time. So that seems like additional complexity to bring all of that together. How did that happen?
Absolutely. Well, actually, we had another. So we had a precise legal too. So there was
Mm.
complete legal out of Kansas City, Chicago, New York, Chicago, Boston, complete legal out of St. Louis. So those three companies with five locations, and then we had a small acquisition in Nashville.
Yeah.
And that you talk about trust. I mean that's big because while we were doing the acquisition, we hadn't done the deal yet, right? So you're
Right.
bringing an acquisition into a group that still hasn't signed everything on yet. And that took a lot of trust because
Right.
you haven't the deal hasn't been inked, and you're bringing another company in. So that's a great deal of trust. So yeah, so that was when I talk about that, people are like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, we just did it. We didn't
Yeah.
have a choice. It was a lot of moving parts, exhausting because you're kind of spinning. You're doing so much. You're focusing on this integration. You're focusing on all these different offices. You're communicating with employees, communicating with clients. And then you have this acquisition that you're bringing them in to a not even new entity yet because the entity is forming, so
Right.
just lots, but really, Kevin, lots of communication. I mean, heavy, heavy communication. And my two partners are great at that, really, really sticking to that, and just making sure everyone knows here's what we're doing, and just really let them be very, just let them know what's going on.
Yeah.
Very, very, very transparent is what I'm looking for, and just let them know every way, and that worked out nicely. So they kind of saw what was happening, and then they got to see it actually happen, and then we were off to the races.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to set that vision for what you saw for the combined entity, and then is clearly a big way of getting the acquisition, the smaller acquisition, excited. Precise Legal, was it?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, precisely was the other acquisition,
yeah,
and then the frontline e-discovery
yeah.
services was in Nashville.
But there must also have been some level of validation, not just of here's the vision, Eric, but also that they could see the culture and the trust that you were building with the merger that you were running. They were almost a test for. They were almost a test for are you going to make it as a combined entity?
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, what an awesome way of an awesome way of getting real-time feedback on how you were doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, when you talk to the employees, sometimes they look at it, they can't believe what we did. It's really, yeah. It was when you look back. I mean, it's a lot of fun. And I love
Mhm.
I love building teams, and I love putting companies together that make sense. And
Yeah,
when you do it, like I said, you're doing things for certain reasons, and then once you do it, you see all these other great things happen from it, and come out
right.
of it. And then if you see something that doesn't work, you pivot. You just say, okay, this
Right.
isn't working here. This move here, let's make an adjustment. And then so it just kind of you're making decisions live. But nothing feels better when you put good folks together, good teams together, and you see
Right.
some success.
That's great. So, this whole time you've got all of this work to put this deal together. Presumably, all of you are still trying to run your respective companies, both before, during the deal, and then afterwards. So, how did you manage? Because I see this with clients of ours where we're having to deal with the acquisition, but we're also trying to run the business and make sure that our customers are
Yeah.
satisfied and so on. So, how did you manage that additional work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, it's a lot of people say when you start going down the, working with people on acquisition, it's a very distracting,
Yeah.
and when they fall apart, it really stinks because you're spending all that time, and it's definitely, it distracts you. It's taking your mind your mind off, and a lot of it was just almost work two jobs, doing a lot of late nights, a lot of back and forths, working with the attorneys, working with you just you're
Hmm.
kind of on you're kind of doing two jobs at once and just getting through everything um and then that's where you kind of was trying to speed it up, kind of getting to the point where because it is so much and you are running
Right.
things separately and you are doing things for to the potential combined entity. But yeah, it's a lot of heavy lifting, and there's some reason why some people don't like doing it. They like I've got a lot of friends who are in the industry just had no interest to do it because of that very thing, just because it is a lot of work, and some people just like doing it themselves. But a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of time. But once again, communicating, and then just once once we got there, then it was a whole litany of other things, So kind of going from doing two jobs, and now you're really trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way to do this? Now we're
Mhm.
together. What's the messaging, internal and externally? What are we? What kind of company? What are we? What are we trying to do? What are we trying? How do we want to be looked at in the marketplace? It doesn't stop. There's always you're evolving,
Right.
you're defining who you are, reaching out to so many clients. Sometimes clients, when they see an acquisition or a name change, they kind of take a step back, even though a lot of times
Right.
it's a very good thing, but not everyone perceives it as that. So you really
Yeah.
have to let them know that no, this is great, and here's why. And we still have these same great folks, but we have a lot of other great people here, and can offer
Right.
more services and more of this. And some people they don't think of that right away. So sometimes they kind of wait a
Right.
little bit and you see, but so a lot of communicating, a lot of getting out to everybody and explaining what we're doing and not just sending emails. So,
Right.
yeah,
And sometimes just having those conversations is helpful. Those customer conversations to say, we're coming together. This is why. Here's what the future value proposition looks like. But you also get feedback, right? Because when you're having these conversations, it's not one way. So did you get feedback or what kind of feedback did you get from your customers that was helpful as you move forward?
yes, and it's a great point. Feedback is great, and a lot of times we'll talk to clients to some say, "How are we doing? What can we do better? What
Hmm.
can we do more of? What can we do less of?" Um, no, the feedback was really good. At first, what they say is this person still going to be there? Are they going to be here? Are they going to? I'm like, yes,
Right.
absolutely. That's kind of the first thing is no one's leaving. Is my rep leaving? Is my project manager leaving? That's usually
Right.
the first kind of feeling. They kind of almost like they're scared, they're worried, panicking. And of course, there's always like, no, they're all staying. They're all going to be there, and they're going to have more people to support them. So that was really the gist of it. Some people were happy for us because they knew that's something we wanted to ultimately do and find some
Yeah.
great folks to. So yeah, good conversations. But to your point, great. It's also a great reason to get in front of clients because sometimes you want to.
It is.
Yeah, it kind of it's a reason to get in front of them, and there's a saying it's being in their being their minds, not in their faces. So finding
Right.
ways to get in front of them, talk to them, and so that's always nice too. You get in front of a lot of those folks and let them know what's going on.
I do think that that's a basic that sometimes we just forget about, which is finding an opportunity to have a conversation with a client, with a customer, strengthens the relationship because you get to update them on what you're doing, and they get to tell
Yes,
you what they're doing, and then you can see
absolutely.
how it's coming together. So it's a great opportunity to go and strengthen
Mhm.
those relationships. Sometimes that people view it as, oh, we've got to be defensive about these conversations. We've got just warning you that we're going to be acquired or we're going
Mhm.
through an acquisition versus being much more open about here's what it can do for you.
Absolutely. No, that communication and being able to talk to clients, it's key. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. So as you've been going through this, you're now what a year plus into the post.
So we're starting our third year.
Third year. Oh, I'm
We have
sorry.
two full years behind our belt, and we just had our strategy summit last week. So we had a bunch of
Yeah,
folks together and talking about kind of talking about our 2025. We ended up
right.
talking about our 2026 goals. So yeah, so we're year three in. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you're now 2 years past the merger and the acquisition. So what's next for Complete Legal? Where are you going? What are the things that you're looking at in the marketplace? How do you see the future?
Yeah, I mean, we're just looking at, adding to the team, growing. We started with, I think probably 40, maybe 45 people. Now we're at almost 90, 2 years
Yeah.
later,
Wow.
you
So
know,
you've doubled in 2 years?
we doubled our size. Yeah, doubled our size in 2 years.
Congratulations.
No,
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Even at our strategy summit, we started our first year with like 9 people. We had, I think, 18. They're 2 years later of our leaders. So, yeah, just looking for good talent, looking for good folks, looking for um, other territories that make sense. As we're over the last couple of years, we're growing in different markets. And so just constantly look at whether that's acquisitions, whether it's strategic hires, strategic partnerships. So really just looking to just kind of spread complete, over, to more and more spots, more and more coverage over the country.
That's an incredible story, Eric. To go from bringing the companies together, building that trust, and then to be twice the size 2 years later. I mean, that's not a story that everybody tells, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. No, it's been great.
Congratulations.
No, it's been,
Um,
and I feel like we're just, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we're just getting started, even though we've been through a lot, there's just so much, there's some really good momentum, going on right now. So,
Fantastic. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation today, one of the questions I like to ask is a consistent one, which is you're now looking back over the last 2, 3 years as you went through this integration process. If you were to take one, the biggest learning that you had, one thing that you would focus on or do differently as you look back, what would that be?
wow, that's a good one. You know, I would say, even though I feel like open-minded coming in, maybe even be more open-minded, because
Yeah.
I think when you have, four companies coming in and you're just kind of,
Mm,
trying to figure out the best. I feel like I was open-minded, but I probably could have been more open-minded. When we're
wow.
integrating, I mean, I think I probably would give myself a B, and not an A, because sometimes you're kind of
Yeah.
trying to like kind of say, no, let's do this. So I look back and I probably could have been a little more open-minded, but yeah, I don't see, it's really. I don't know. We're starting, we just kind of hit the gas and we just kind of didn't look back. And it's been really exciting. I've got great partners, and we just can't wait to see what 2026 brings.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That whole idea of, you talked about open-minded, but assuming trust, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes trust is built out over a long period of time.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just have to say, I'm going to assume that we trust each other deeply and we're going to progress as a result of that. And that helps you get there faster.
yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Well, Eric, I wanted to thank you. What a great conversation. I wanted to thank you for your time today on the Mid-Market Edge and congratulate you on the fantastic journey that Complete Legal has been on. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Mid-Market Edge podcast. For more information, visit the Mid-Market Edge website at midmarketedge.com. Details are in the show notes. Remember to subscribe and like the show so you'll never miss an episode. And until next time, keep building your edge in the mid-market.